2, 1. Weapons hot. We are weapons hot. Yep, that one's working. Facebook's.
I tried to tell you.
Go live. Starting in 3, 2, 1. We are go on Facebook and YouTube.
Do we have an intro?
We are broadcasting to the Matrix.
So in the Matrix, that whole idea of being able to see things. Do you think they were doing LSD and stuff in the Matrix?
I think the people that wrote the Matrix were doing LSD.
Gotcha.
They're running our intro, real talk, from two buffoons who just love to serve Jesus and talk about nonsense. 3, 2, 1, and we're live.
Hey, this is Friday, Uneducated, and you don't have to be educated to think rationally about the scriptures and about life. You just have to be serious about searching for the truth. So today we're going to get into some Revelation stuff, and then we may even talk some drug stuff, maybe. I don't know.
You want to talk drugs again?
Well, last week we did, and I've been doing some extra studies and research on some of these people that are doing this stuff, and it's crazy what they're getting into.
I just don't want to disappoint you. It's not really an area I know a lot about.
No?
No.
So you've never done any kind of hallucinogenics drugs or anything?
No, sir.
Okay, that's good.
I try and stick to the man-made normal ones that everybody else has been hooked on for eternity.
Hallucinogenic drugs are man-made.
Well, I mean, like, I don't go in the woods trying to find stuff to eat.
Oh, gotcha.
And smoke.
Okay. Gotcha.
Like, tobacco's just fine, and the whiskey floweth. So,
Gotcha.
What else do you need?
Oh, gotcha. All right. Okay. So just some quick reminders here as we get into, and people are logging on for our live cast. Just a couple quick things. If you have prayer requests or things that you're going through in your life, let us know. You can go to our website at anycommunity.org, and there is a place there on the front page where you can go to give a prayer request, and there'll be a form there you can fill out. You fill out the form, it'll come to us, and then we can get it to our prayer team on Wednesday nights, and we can be praying for you and with you. The other thing is this. If you have something going on that maybe you had somebody this past week just come and bless you, encourage you, maybe share a word with you from the scriptures or something, or if you've done that with somebody, maybe you discipled somebody, or you saw God work in a certain way when you stepped outside of your comfort zone and you loved somebody for the sake of Christ. If you did that, that's the idea of planting a seed, and we've been running this plant a seed theme here at Northeast Community for the last several months. And on our website, we have a place where you can go and just let us know if that's been happening to you, or if you're planting seeds somewhere, or if someone's planting a seed in your life. And we would just like to hear those stories so that we can share those stories. And you have the option of asking us to kind of keep it anonymous if that's what you would like, or we can share it. Or you could even come in and have a video done. Linda would be more than willing to do a video with you. But we would like to hear the stories so that we can encourage one another with these stories. It's not to brag. It's not to try and say, oh, look what we're doing. It's just a way to I guess, measure how well we as a church are getting out there and planting seeds and making disciples and being witnesses for Christ. But also, it's encouraging when people hear about what other people are doing. So if we can do it in the right spirit with the right heart, I think it would be a good thing for us to do. So you can go right online on our website. There's another box there on the front page that says plant a seed, and you'll go to a page where you can fill out a form. So, Matt, have you filled out any?
So I have not, but you can go to our website and enter a chance to win a free Mercedes DR 1735.
Now, I know that they'll go like gangbusters for that.
No, I know, so I did that.
Yeah. But that's not true. That's an actual lie.
No, we are getting rid of Mercedes. I don't know the model number.
Who is?
It's our church.
Oh, we are? Whose Mercedes is it?
I don't know. We'll have to get one.
Man, we got Mercedes, but
Just gonna bring it up at the board meeting.
oh, well, that's nice.
I think it'd be cool if we did something like that. Real nice to the community.
It would be. I'd just like to know where we're going to get the $60,000 to buy one.
Oh, you getting a used one?
Yeah.
I was talking about buying a new one.
Right. Well, it's good to see Patty Davis on here, and Bill's on today, and Ron and Carol. You guys are watching on Facebook.
We have a Dottie on
Dottie.
YouTube's.
I haven't heard from you in a while, Dottie. So you might want to jump in on some of this discussion today, Dottie. That would be good.
We got a total of 4 over there right
Okay.
now. 3.
Good.
3 current viewers.
Good. All right. Well, listen, make this as interactive as possible today because we've got some interesting stuff to talk about. So please, chime in, give comments, questions, thoughts, and we'll try to address those things. One of the things that I want to get into is, and we can just start off like gangbusters here, and I want to get into Revelation. We've been studying what this series called The Coming Days on Sundays, and we've been walking through what it means, what the coming day, what the great day of the Lord is, and what that looked like in the Old Testament, and what that looks like in the New Testament, and what that looks like out in the future. And so we've brought ourselves all the way now to, we talked about the man of lawlessness and the Antichrist last week, and now we're going to try to talk about the Great Tribulation this week. However, I've noticed as I've been doing some more in-depth study that there's no way we can rush through the Great Tribulation in one Sunday. So I think we're going to break it up into a few Sundays.
Or 7 years, for that matter.
Or 7 years, yeah, which is strange. So, but if you go to Revelation, and the whole idea of tribulation starts with the SEAL movement, not the Navy SEALs, just in case you were wondering.
I was thinking the ones on rocks on coasts.
And right, yeah, like
Yeah, those.
yeah. So, not to get off subject, but someone told me that it was coming out that supposedly a certain candidate gave an order to have that SEAL Team 6 shot down. Remember that helicopter that got shot down, and everybody was like, they were always like,
In Benghazi?
no, when that team that got Osama bin Laden,
yeah.
and then they came home, and then they were doing some kind of practice things, and they got shot down accidentally.
Right.
And now there's word out that supposedly a certain candidate when he
All right,
was
so
vice president.
there's a lot of videos this week slinging like what you think should be fiery arrows of death at the whole progressive wing of the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
And nothing's happening.
Yeah. Well, because it goes back to like the Bill Clinton days. It's like, what is sex?
Or what is the definition of is?
Yeah. And does my personal life really matter? Or does my public? But does my public life really matter?
It does if it's Donald Trump. If it's Donald Trump, it does matter. If you're Joe Biden, you can be a potato and they'll prop you up.
But the fact that I've served a life sentence in prison, does that really matter? I mean, nothing really matters right now. Let's just face it, nothing matters.
No, this is the world we live in.
You can be a really great person and do a lot of bad things, and you just be a great person.
Yeah, and you could be a bad person that doesn't do much of anything.
Yeah, that's true. That's right. So let's get into the seals. So that starts in chapter 5 of Revelation. And just remember, too, it is Revelation, not Revelations. There's not many revelations. There's just
only one.
Just one revelation. And it is the revelation of Jesus Christ, too. This is Jesus giving this revelation to John. Tells us that in chapter 1. So as you're looking through that, you get to chapter 5, and you find out that there is a book with 7 seals. And there's only one person that's able to open the book, and that's the Lamb of God. They couldn't figure out who's going to open it. They were like all freaked out. And then all of a sudden, the Lamb comes along, and he can open it. So in chapter 6, then, you have these seals starting to open. And the first seal that is opened, it says in verse 2 of chapter 6, it was a white horse, and he who sat on it had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he went out conquering and to conquer. Now, of course, people have all kinds of views of what this white horse is and what this person who sat on it. It gives us no indication of what it is, if this is a kingdom. It gives us no indication if this is a angelic being or some kind of spirit being doing this. It's just a white horse. The person who sat on it had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he went out conquering and to conquer. So it sounds like whoever he is, he's going out, and he's going to take over other places and nations, whoever this person is on this white horse.
Okay.
All right. So then you have a second seal being opened, and when he broke that seal, he heard a second living creature saying, "Come," and another, a red horse this time, went out to him, and to him who sat on it, it was granted to take peace from the earth, and that men would slay one another, and a great sword was given to him. So I want you to think about this for a second. As you look through, as you just walk through the text, okay, the first horse, okay, all of a sudden just goes out and conquers everything. The second horse, it says, is a red horse, all right? So obviously white and red, there must be some meaning there, but everybody will try to figure out what that meaning is.
There's got to be a meaning that the first rider had a crown.
Yes, right.
I mean, there's all kinds of meanings here, but you're saying there's nothing here to specifically show what it's representing.
It doesn't appear that.
Okay.
But you can add to it as we go through the rest of the scriptures. We can add to it. But so this red horse, though, it went out, and to him who sat on it was granted to take peace from the earth, that men would slay one another, and a great sword was given to him. So a sword usually is the idea of war,
right?
Creating some kind of war.
Weaponry.
So some kind of power was given to him to create war and cause men to slay each other.
Which we do that a lot.
I was going to say, doesn't that sound like something
in the history of mankind? We've done that a lot.
Right, something that's been done for a while. We could go all the way back to Hitler and say, oh, this could be Hitler.
All the way? That's only like 60 years.
That's true.
You could go through the Dark Ages. You could go to the Crusades.
Right.
Europe constantly was fighting itself. It's one of the reasons why this little beauty of a country exists right here, right now. The Founding Fathers were like, don't get involved in their trifle arguments because they just end up killing each other.
Right.
They forewarned us. Mm-hmm. Don't. They're just gonna fight. So they obviously always fought.
Yeah. Right.
Like you could go. All right. So this is kind of a tangent, but can you go back to David fighting whoever it was he was fighting, which we have said might be giants and
right.
Like we've been using swords for a while.
Yeah, and obviously the sword is a representation of some kind of authority to create war.
Sure.
Some power that creates war. I guess what I'm trying to get at is everybody says this is the beginning of the 7-year tribulation period.
We've been having war for all the way back to Hitler.
Yeah. But I think that stuff's been going on. So if you go back to Matthew, or even let's just go back to Luke 21 for that matter. I think let me just find it real quick here.
Because if we want to come full circle to a few weeks ago, the Watchers that's one of the things they taught man.
Right.
Was how to make weaponry.
Right. Yep.
And start war.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. Maybe I do need to go to Matthew. I mean, the idea or the thought that I'm getting at is where he talks about, there will be wars and rumors of wars.
Oh, that's 24.
Here we go. Matthew 24. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will mislead many. You will be hearing of wars and rumors of wars. See to it that you're not frightened, for those things must take place, but that is not yet the end. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and in various places there will be famines and earthquakes. And we'll get to the famines and the earthquakes here in a minute. Okay. But there will be famines and earthquakes, but all these things are merely the beginning of birth pangs. Now people say, yeah, that was Christ talking about the tribulation here in Revelation. But the very next verse says, then they will deliver you to tribulation. He's speaking to the disciples here.
Right.
So after all this stuff happens, then they're going to deliver you, the disciples, to tribulation.
Right.
So this concept of tribulation is not as easy as the Tim LaHaye's and the books try to make it.
So
it's really complicated.
Dottie says, my research, I believe the white horse is the Antichrist, the red horse is war, black horse famine, which always follows war. Dottie, you haven't been here for a few weeks, so...
Just so you know, we've gone on a heresy journey.
Put on your boots. We are supposing we are not so much pre-trib rapturing right now, and in fact trying to show, or I don't. Are we trying to show? What are we trying to do here?
Well,
we're just speculate and question.
We're just trying to find out what the purpose of knowing this information is for, and the question is, do we need to know, and do we need to sit around and debate and argue whether there's a 7-year period, whether we're going to be raptured out in the beginning, the middle, the end, or what is the overall purpose?
Just full disclosure, I'm not a pre-trib rapture guy. I don't think I'm a preterist guy, but it's like we're kind of in the middle here somewhere.
Yeah, we are. And for me, I just want to look through the scriptures methodically and try to see what's happening between what Jesus said, what the Old Testament prophets said, and what John is talking about in the book of Revelation. Now, I do believe there is a time where we will be taken out, that God will rapture us. 2 Thessalonians is clear on that we will meet the Lord in the sky and we will be changed. Paul talks about that in Corinthians.
But that would be the second coming.
But it appears that that's coupled with his second coming when he returns at the end.
Right.
So I kind of lean more towards, either at least mid or at the end of the tribulation period. But this is the coming tribulation. This is the great day of tribulation. However, when you look at the text, it appears that tribulation has always been, and tribulation is here right now. And we'll talk a little more about that whole concept of tribulation.
She wants you to repeat the last. Can you repeat what the last verse was? So maybe just what the verse was that you read. It was 24,
in Matthew 24.
Matthew 24.
Oh, that he will hand you over to tribulation, but I'll read it specifically. So this is verse 9. Then they will deliver you. So you have these things happening, like these earthquakes, famines.
This is not yet the end.
Yeah. Then they will. That's just merely the beginning of birth pangs. And it says, then they will deliver you to tribulation and will kill you, and you will be hated by all nations because of my name. Now, you got to remember, he's speaking to his disciples. He's not speaking to a crowd of people. He's speaking specifically to his disciples. Because his disciples ask him this question in verse 3, and then in verse 4 it says, and Jesus answered and said to them. So that's kind of where we're at with that. Now, listen, I'm not saying if the rapture, and I've said this week in and week out, if the rapture happens before a great tribulation, I'm totally fine with that. I like that idea. I'm cool with that because I don't want to have to go through all that junk either.
And that's how they've sold it.
Yeah.
Because we all want to be medevaced out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, it'd be easy to join a religion that you're going to be saved. Mm-hmm. You're going to get pulled out of here. Yeah, you want to go to that church. That's my Alex Jones.
Yeah, that's good, Alex Jones. So listen, we have in the third seal. So we have war in the second seal. In the third seal, we have famine, which is also in Matthew 24, which talks about that. So when he broke the third seal, I heard the third living creature saying, "Come." I looked, and behold, a black horse. And he who sat on it had a pair of scales in his hand, and he said, "Oh, look, a quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius." And a denarius was like a day's wages.
Then they're calling that famine?
Well, it's because in order to buy this, you're going to need a whole day's wages just to buy that little bit.
All right, so that may cause a famine, but that horse to me sounds like the money changers, the Illuminati, the bankers.
Okay.
The money changers, the money stealers.
The people who
they're inflating our money. They're inflating our
That's
dollar,
a good thought.
And they're making everything that we have cost more money that we don't have.
That's a good thought. So again, here, so I'm looking at this.
I guess my thing that got me on that. There's no time frame for these.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, and then there was a time, a specific. It's just like. I heard.
I saw.
And then it happened. Mm-hmm. I saw, and then it happened.
Right.
Well, the other one was I heard a creature, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's no like. This isn't hung on a schedule.
Right.
these are just things that he heard or saw in his vision, and like you said, there's no specific description of what those things are. These are just like concepts of things coming.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, and here's the thing. These horses with the people sitting on them, I've got this strange feeling that these are spirits.
I figured this is where you were going.
These are spirits that are empowering governments or people groups or nations.
Right.
And when they do that, then it changes the whole course of everything else that's being done on the earth. Right. So when certain spirits, like the black horse, is given to perform this act, then all of a sudden we've got somebody playing with our currency, like you said, where all of a sudden now you can't hardly buy anything unless you work a week.
Right. I mean that. And don't we all, as conspiracy theorists, say that's who's running the world right now? Mm-hmm. Like that's been unleashed.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And the first one to me sounds like that one's just. What did you say? The second one was war. The red one.
The red horse is the one who came out and was granted to take peace from the earth, that men would slay one another, and a great sword was given to him.
Okay. All right.
So again, that's not specifically war.
It's not a specific timeline of when.
Right. So then the fourth seal is opened here, and these seals are interesting because the seals build, or some people say they build on the trumpets and then the bowls, or some people say they are just retelling each one, giving more specific understanding of that. And we'll kind of try to look at that real quick if we can, if we have time. But we're already running a long time. So the fourth seal is when the Lamb broke the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature saying, "Come." I looked, and behold, an ashen horse, and he who sat on it had the name Death, and Hades was following with him. Authority was given to him over a fourth of the earth to kill with the sword and with famine and with pestilence and by the wild beasts of the earth. Now, if you go back to 24, for nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and in various places there will be famines and earthquakes. I wanted to see, I thought that there was an area here where it talks about pestilence too. Here in verse 21, for then there will be great tribulation. This is talking about after abomination of desolation. But again, abomination of desolation here in 24, Jesus is specifically talking about 70 AD in this passage. Now, I'm not saying there's not going to be an abomination of desolation or a man of lawlessness in the end time tribulation. There will be. But Jesus here seems to be, the context seems to be talking about 70 AD, which is when the temple was destroyed and Nero and Vespasian and their forces came in. But it says in verse 24, 21, for then there will be a great tribulation such as has not occurred since the beginning of the world until now, nor will ever be. And unless those days have been cut short, no life would have been saved. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. Now, automatically people go, that's the rapture. Because it's cut short for us. We're taken out, and it's cut short for us. That's not a bad idea of that. But again, this seems to be speaking of 70 AD, not necessarily future tense. But then it goes into this thing, and if anyone says to you, behold, here is the Christ, you're not to go out and do that. And then right after that, it talks about his glorious return. So, fourth seal is death seems to be coming through famine, pestilence, sword, all those things. Fifth seal. When the Lamb broke the fifth seal, I saw underneath the altar the souls of those who had been slain because of the word of God and because of the testimony which they had maintained. And they cried out with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, will you refrain from judging and avenging our blood on those who dwell on the earth? And there was given to each of them a white robe, and they were told that they should rest for a little while longer until the number of their fellow servants and their brethren who were to be killed, even as they had been, would be completed also. So you've got people in heaven who have been martyred. They're saying, how long till you avenge? Jesus says, wait, there's still some more that have to die.
And in my Tim LaHaye knowledge, that was taught to me that those were the people who got left behind. Mm-hmm. But were saved and they had their heads chopped off by the guillotine.
And it could be.
But there have been people martyred
Right.
since 70 AD.
There are people being martyred right now for the sake of Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Right. So that is, again, a nebulous time period.
Right. So how long? Jesus says, until these martyrs are complete. So the church right now.
Just hold on. You just wait. There's a couple more coming to join you. Settle down.
Yeah. A couple more people got to die.
A couple more people going to die, okay?
Yeah, yeah. So that's what's going on here. And then you got the sixth seal. He broke the sixth seal, and there was a great earthquake. And the sun became black, and sackcloth made of hair.
Now, we know that's when California falls in the ocean.
We do. That's what's going to happen.
It says San Andreas Fault, doesn't it?
Oh, my goodness. It does not say that.
It does not say that.
But it's close. It says great earthquake, and we know California's great.
Yep.
The sun became black as sackcloth and hair, and the whole moon became like blood, and the stars of the sky fell to the earth as a fig tree casts its unripe figs when shaken by a great wind, and the sky was split apart like a scroll when it's rolled up, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. And then the kings of the earth and the great men and the commanders of the earth. Now, we look at this and we go, when has this ever happened? Well, I don't know that it has.
There aren't any great kings and commanders.
Right.
I mean, besides Donald Trump.
That's good. That's good. So then the kings of the earth and the great men of the commanders and the rich and the strong and every slave and free man hid themselves in the caves among the rocks of the mountains. And they said to the mountains and to the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the presence of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of their wrath has come, and who is able to stand?
That verse always sits on my heart, my mind. Mm-hmm. Like you're going to be so terrified to see him coming.
Right.
That you're begging rocks to crush you.
Right.
Please fall on me, mountains.
And yet as the saints, we're called to look for his appearing. We're called to watch for his appearing.
Right. These are the great leaders and commanders of the world.
Yes.
Right.
The great leaders and commanders, slave free, all the people who probably, whatever. But listen, all this, in these seals, so this is the thing. If this is happening in the first set of seals, and this is the sixth seal, well, obviously you could say, okay, Antichrist was the first seal, but it doesn't tell us that that's Antichrist.
Right.
But this seal then means this is when Jesus is getting ready to return here.
Right.
He's coming down. The wrath of the Lamb is coming. The great day of the wrath has come, and he's going to, take care of business. And then there's this interlude, and there's an angel saying, listen, just wait. He tells the other angels from the four corners of the earth, he says, don't destroy the grass or the sea or anything yet. Don't do any of that stuff yet until we seal the 144,000. And the 144,000 are from the 12 tribes. There's 12,000 from each tribe. And so you have your 144,000, right?
Not defiled by a woman.
Yes, which I used to think I was going to be one.
Right.
You remember that?
We digress.
Yeah. But April messed that up for me. And April will say, no, it wasn't me. She's such a bad girl. Moving on. So, the multitude from the tribulation, then, that's what you have here in verses 9 through 17 of chapter 7. But then you get into chapter 8, and you've got the seventh seal. And the seventh seal is actually the opening of the trumpets, or the blast of the trumpets. So now you're going to have 7 trumpets, which is interesting because once you get through here, you've got so now you have the first trumpet sounds, and it came, and there came hail and fire mixed with blood, and they were thrown to the earth, and a third of the earth was burned up, and a third of the trees were burned up, and the green grass was burned up. So a third of the green grass and all these things were burned up. Okay? So with that, we would say, okay, then that's going to be a serious, type of tribulation coming up on the earth. So who's going to be here now? Who is it that's going to be here? Because it appears that in the sixth seal, the Lamb came, and these people all hid out because his wrath was coming on them. So we say, okay, so they're hiding out, and this is now happening. So these people are hiding in cliffs and caves, and now this is going to happen. Okay. So we can walk through that. But what's interesting is if you go to Ezekiel chapter 5, this is Old Testament. If you go to Ezekiel chapter 5, and this is speaking of a war. This is speaking of Jerusalem's desolation. And if I start in verse 5, thus says the Lord God, this is Jerusalem. I have set her at the center of the nations with lands around her. And she has rebelled against my ordinances more wickedly than the nations, and against my statutes more than the lands which surround her. So this is against Jerusalem here, and this is coming against them because they've been more wicked than even the nations around her. Then in verse 12 it says, I'll go verse 11. So as I live, declares the Lord, surely because you have defied my sanctuary with all your detestable idols and with all your abominations, therefore I will also withdraw, and my eye will have no pity, and I will not spare. 1/3 of you will die by plague, or be consumed by famine among you. 1/3 will fall by the sword around you, and 1/3 I will scatter to every wind, and I will unsheathe a sword behind them. Now, plagues and this idea of the sword being, part of the death problem. When you get into not the trumpets, but the bowls, the bowls are referred to as plagues.
Okay.
And those plagues that are in the bowls are also fire and being scorched and these kinds of things. So I guess my thought is that this is language that is not different from Old Testament destruction or desolation coming upon a nation through military.
And it was happening. What you're saying is it happened in Old Testament times.
Yes, and when it happened, it was seen that it was a military force coming in.
Okay.
So a lot of people look at this and they think this is something that's going to happen, some kind of supernatural event, and it may be. Or it may very well be that God uses a nation. Yeah.
World War II.
Right. It may be a nation.
Crusades.
Or nations.
Right.
Yeah. So the idea of 1/3 of the earth was burned up and 1/3 of the trees were burned up and all that.
Do you know much about the Crusades?
Just enough to probably be dangerous.
Like,
just that
the Europeans rode to the Middle East to kill the savages
which were Muslim that were trying to convert people to Islam.
Right.
That's one side of the story, yeah.
And then weren't they also killing Jews?
They may have been.
Right.
They may have been.
So like that probably was pretty awful and war.
Right.
And war torn.
Right.
And, like, how many men were killed during that?
Right.
Right. Like compared to per capita. I don't know. So I guess the point that we're trying to make is
that we could be in tribulation that's coming up to
since 70
second
AD.
coming.
Since 70 AD.
Since 70 AD.
Right.
Second coming could be like that.
Right.
And when the second coming comes, that could be. So, for instance, right now, the Euphrates River is at its lowest point. Turkey controls that with a dam.
Right.
And it's at its lowest point. There is a bowl judgment that talks about the Euphrates River, and I think it's the 6th bowl. The Euphrates River dries up. And it dries up for the purpose of the armies of the East to be able to travel in and possibly destroy. That's odd to me, though, because today with our technology, we don't need a river to dry up to get our armies over there. So that doesn't make sense.
Tanks and stuff.
Well, yeah, but can't we put tanks on planes and drop them off?
Yeah, but maybe we're out of gas.
Oh, well, maybe. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think tribulation, we need to be careful because everybody's waiting for rapture.
Right.
But I think as Christians, we could be tribulation. We could be looking at second coming.
We could go through all these, and I think if we could boil this down, the point trying to be made here is there's no exact time frame on that.
All right.
And they really are. We have been taught that they're very specific, and this is what they are. It's like I said before we started our show today. Mm-hmm. If you want to do the pre-trib rapture, that's cool, but you seriously have to think about how you learned about it.
Right.
And usually you have to go into some kind of Daniel study, and it ties in with Revelations. Right. And then you have to ask yourself, if you were a normal person just floating by yourself and you had a Bible, would you put those two together if no one told you about it? Mm-hmm. And I think the answer is no.
No, because there's...
Or the odds are very, very small.
Yeah, because you would have to deal with some of the discrepancies from Daniel's timetable,
and
you have to play with numbers.
interpretation.
Yeah, you have to play with numbers
And words, and their meaning.
Yeah.
So so all we're doing, to sum this up really quickly, is just say, if we want to really look at things with fresh eyeballs and really start to read some of these things, you're going to see that they're not as a movie showed you.
Right.
And we all learned that the first horse was the Antichrist and the second horse was war, and we all learned that those things are going to happen, and we're not here to have them. But we're looking at it like, well, let's just say that this has been going on for a while,
Right.
And so, like you're saying, the important message out of that is, outside of a great earthquake, we're not far away from. If we're going to look at it this way, it's almost more stirring to pay attention, to look for Christ coming. It's just as exciting. It's just as near.
Right.
And just as important that you're focused on Christ.
Right.
And his actual second coming.
Right.
Yeah.
And it just seems odd to me that the disciples would constantly tell the people to look up, your redemption draws near. Keep your eyes focused and be alert because you don't know when your Lord may come. If these writers knew that the Christians wouldn't be here.
Well, yeah, that's perfect. If they knew that all this other stuff was going to happen in a 7-year period, 2,000 years from now, they wouldn't tell the people in front of them, look up now.
Yeah.
Right? Is that what that's what you're saying?
That's my thought.
Yeah.
But some people would say, well, Revelation didn't come yet because if you believe, depending on what your timetable is, John was written around 90 A.D., and most of Paul's writings were anywhere from 40 to 56, somewhere around there, depending on what timetable you give them. So some people would say, well, Revelation hadn't come to Paul yet, so he was still looking at that. But Paul talked about a man of lawlessness, so some revelation came to him about end time stuff.
Right.
So it's difficult. I guess one of the things I'm trying to say is that Revelation and the end time stuff is difficult. Yeah.
It's pictures.
Yeah, it's not easy.
And in there's no robots, and I know robots are going to kill us.
Yeah, robots will, and they may come out of a mothership one day, a large one.
It's built by Bill Gates.
Couple football fields long.
Or Amazon.
Yes, right. So with that said, Ben, I think it's best to walk through these scripture texts and then to walk through them again and then to walk through them again and let the scripture texts speak for themselves. And if you find an area where the scripture doesn't fit the books that you've read about end times, don't try to figure out how to fit it into that.
Right.
Just go, hey, maybe that's not true.
Maybe the books should fit into the Bible, not the Bible fit into the books.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. Because, again, if rapture comes before all this stuff hits the fan, I'm fine with that. I don't really want to mess with that. So so we're kind of running low, but
are you talking? Is this what you're talking about on Sunday?
I'm going to start talking about some of this, but to be honest, I've done all this research on the bowls or the seals, the trumpets, the bowls, and I still don't know exactly how to organize it so that, because we're not going to be able to do it in one Sunday. I still haven't figured out how to organize it in order to get it in a succinct, understandable lesson for Sunday number 1 and then Sunday number 2, because it jumps around all over the place.
I'm going to get you a book.
Oh.
It's by Tim LaHaye.
Oh, okay. And then it'll be perfect?
It'll lay it all out.
All right.
You'll be able to knock it out in about 40 minutes.
All right, great. Then I'm on that. So then you have a second angel with it. Now this is real quick. We'll end with this today, and then we'll jump on something else. But the third, the second angel, something like a great mountain burning with fire, was thrown into the sea, and a third of the sea became blood. And a third of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. Now, that sounds like interesting that somebody would say, well, that's a meteor or some kind of a meteor that comes down.
This goes back to the Tom Horn thing we were talking about.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So that hits, so there's ships destroyed. It would make sense because ships were destroyed that this has happened. But what's odd about this is that the very next trumpet is something like a torch in verse 10, It's coming down from heaven, but it says it's a great star that fell from heaven. And it was burning like a torch, and it fell on a third of the rivers and on the springs of water. And the name of the star is called Wormwood. And a third of the waters became wormwood or bitter, because many men died in the waters because they were made bitter. The word wormwood means bitter. If you look at the depiction of stars throughout Revelation and throughout the Old Testament, stars usually referred to angelic beings or spirit beings.
Spirits.
So is this burning mountain coming down? Is this star that fell from heaven? Is it actual like asteroid stuff? Or again, is it a spirit being that has been given authority to go and wreak havoc on the earth through the means? So ships are destroyed. Well, how are ships going to be destroyed? Well, couldn't they be destroyed by other ships?
Or tsunamis.
Yeah. And because it only says how many ships. It doesn't say all the ships. It says a third of the ships were destroyed. So could not those ships have been destroyed by other ships?
You got 2/3 of the ships left over.
Yeah.
Are they running around destroying stuff?
Right. So that's all I'm saying. I'm just saying when you read it, and not just Revelation, any scripture text, read it and think through it.
Right.
And look at the specifics of it and ask God to show you and give you understanding and discernment concerning it. You know? So that's just, this whole wormwood thing being, some kind of a star.
Listen, it really does unpackage and make not neat the book of Revelation.
Yeah. Like
the pre-tribulation rapture theology really does put book of Revelations in a nice little package.
Right. Yeah.
It's just, I think it's almost too neat. Like it's like, okay, we dealt with that, we conveniently deal with that, and we deal with that and that and that, and then boom, that's it.
Yeah. And here's what people try to do. It says in the beginning, revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him. Blessed, this is verse 3 of Revelation chapter 1. Blessed is he who reads and those who hear the words of the prophecy and heed the things which are written in it, for the time is near. And people say, see, that means we need to have a doctrinal statement on. We need to know what this really means. He doesn't say you're blessed if you know what everything means.
Right.
He says you're blessed if you read it and you hear the words of the prophecy and you heed the things which are written in it. So the only thing people are heeding in here is they're going, oh, I'm excited about the rapture, or
well, we are consumed with figuring out when it's over.
I get it.
Because we all want to, but this goes back to the Watchers and astrology. Mm-hmm. Like our love, we have a love or an affinity for knowing the future.
Right.
Because we are bound by time.
Right.
And so, follow me on this. People that allow the book of Revelations and the end times and they focus on just the end times, they're as bad as people who look at astrology. Mm-hmm. Because that becomes their God.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we were meant to. I mean, when he says, no man knows the day or the hour, only my Father, you're not going to figure it out.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Right.
And when you read it like that, it is fun to go through here with a different set of eyeballs and go, wow. I mean, that really, that let's unpack it from the neat little package and go, that really could be there, or that's going on right now, or right. So we don't know.
That's why I don't understand why certain teachers, like I watch videos of teachers like speaking of this, and
as a matter of fact,
and they go, and this was an asteroid. This is going to be an asteroid.
Right.
This is what it's going to be. It's an asteroid.
Right.
And I'm going, why couldn't it be an army that busts out a third of the ships? Well, what's going to kill all the animals?
Why couldn't it be demons coming as aliens, crashing into the water and making a tsunami?
It could be.
And making an alien landing.
It could be. Why couldn't it be whatever is doing this and destroying a third of the ships, and it also destroyed a third of the creatures in the sea, right? So those creatures
they're obviously hot.
So yeah, obviously. So a third of the creatures in the sea, how are they being killed? Well, they don't have to be killed by an asteroid. They can be killed by pollution, right? We talked about that this morning a little bit. It could be pollution that kills a third
Right.
of them.
Absolutely. The plastic island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
So, for instance, if some of these ships are being, killed, and all of a sudden they're oil tankers, or whatever they are, and it kills sea life because of that.
And
that could happen.
And these things have occurred.
Right.
This stuff has occurred.
Right. And now there's enough in there that it could kill a third of everything. But,
sure.
So it's good to look at it, like Matt said, with new eyeballs, fresh set of eyes, and think through it. So I guess
just on the concept of it kills it, okay? Mm-hmm. Does that mean that it kills it instantly? Does that mean that they'll instantly? It's going to all instantly happen, or whatever occurred to that fish, it's now going to have a shorter life because of that.
Right. Right.
So let's say it's radioactivity. Mm-hmm. The fish is still going to be alive for a time period, but it will die, and it is like when the Fukushima. It was weeks, and then tons of fish started floating.
Right.
Because they eventually get exposed to so much radiation that they die.
Right.
So are we sure that means that they're going to die instantly when that happens?
Right. And this is what's so hard with this apocalyptic literature, and you have to go back to the Old Testament to see some of that and how that works. And it's hard to interpret because, again, too, this fireball or whatever is thrown into the sea, right? So, but here's the strange thing about that. If you go to Revelation chapter 13, and the dragon stood on the sand of the seashore, and then I saw a beast coming up out of the sea. So a beast is going to come out of the sea? No, the sea here is people. So granted, you have to. So people go, well, that's context. Yes, context. But the problem with the Book of Revelation is you have a hard time finding context sometimes.
I watched a video, and we talked about this before. Excuse me. We really need a cough button.
And we're going to need to get some of these right? Is there a lot on there?
Dottie says, I understand that Matthew 29, Jesus is speaking to the Jews at the midpoint of the tribulation. But does it say that?
In Matthew what?
24:9, if we go back to that. She said, I understand it.
Matthew is a book written to Jewish people, but Matthew is also recording what Jesus spoke specifically to his disciples. So you can't change the context of who Jesus was speaking to because Matthew was writing to Jews. I've heard that argument before. But although Matthew was writing to Jews, Luke was writing to Gentile people, but Luke records times where Jesus was saying the same thing, but he's saying it specifically to his disciples. So you can't take Jesus and what he's saying to his disciples out of context because Matthew was specifically writing to Jews. I don't think that's a good way to interpret the text.
Yes, Ezekiel's referring to LEV 26:33, Leviticus, I'm guessing. And then she agrees it's the end and we need to be ready. And I agree with what's being said. I was taught a lot of wrong things for sure, and people put their own twists on verses. Definitely. Yeah, and that's all we're saying.
Yeah, that's all.
Don't. We read the supplemental book when we should be reading the book. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, I would agree.
That's all that's here. And then my wife said, sounds like description of the Antichrist mentioned 1 and 2. So that's way back at the
beginning when we were talking.
White Horse, yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, William Cooper talks about behold the pale horse.
The pale horse.
The pale horse.
Is that the first one here? They like King James says pale instead of white.
Mm-hmm. I believe so. And and that was a book about the government. I mean, what if the Antichrist is governments and science?
Yeah.
We kind of talked about, we were hitting on this last week, and I'm like,
right.
AI. Mm-hmm. AI is the Antichrist. AI is it's the coming thing. And if you think about it, it's going to want to kill us.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's definitely a vehicle to do everything that Revelation talks about it doing.
So the Terminator movies are not that far from reality. Mm-mm. I'm being serious.
No, I hear you.
Because we already.
I'm serious too about the aliens. Nobody believes me either, Matt.
Right. I mean, in the context that it's demons.
Yes.
Absolutely. I don't see why it can't be. And but the AI thing, like we're already being conditioned. I'm so tired of the progressive left going, well, you don't believe science. Well, no, you've made science your god,
Exactly.
right? I don't make science my god. I trust science completely.
Right.
If you're like, let's figure out what makes up this table, how it got here, how it grows, what it does. Oh, there's cells in there. These cells do this. You can science me to death. But I will not then turn around and go, because I figured out what makes up this table, you have to get a vaccination that I made for you.
Yeah, right.
That's a totally different thing.
Yeah, right.
And that becomes where science becomes your god. And then those worshipers of the religion of science are going to start listening to AI. And AI is going to be like, there's too many people on the earth. We should kill some.
Yeah, right. And that's the other thing too. Who died and left a society or a nation the right to say, if we tell you that this is going to preserve life, then you have to do this? Like, where did like
Absolutely.
this group of people, whether it's a government or a nation, where did they get that from? They got that from the Table of Nations back in Genesis chapter 11, when God said, lesser gods can rule over you.
And what do we have in the United Nations? We have a round table of people who are smart and powerful, and they feel like they can dictate to the world how it works.
Yeah.
They have elevated themselves to gods.
Right. And this just goes to show you too, this is, and I don't want to open up this can of worms, but real quick just to get to it, and then maybe we can do something else.
We can handle this in 8 minutes.
Well, I saw just recently within the last 3 days, there were 3 professors that went and got away, kind of like a think tank, Oxford, Stanford, and Harvard. These are scientists. And some people, of course, what will happen is, they'll say, well, they're not epidemiologists, or they're not specific to this or whatever, so they can't speak to it. But they got together specifically to talk about the harm that's being done by all of this shutting down and masks and keeping people indoors all the time and all this stuff. And they said, we think we should come to some kind of a resolution that protects those people who are more vulnerable, but let our children and healthy people function as they normally would function, But I don't know what came out of that. I just know that these 3 very scientists out of very well-known, prestigious colleges and universities would come out and make this statement.
This is the thing. Real science, you're going to find has people on both sides.
Well, that's what's so, that's,
It's the idea of like, well, if you really respect me, you'll wear a mask. Well, if you really respect me, you won't wear a mask. Like, why does that make you better than one the other? And this is where we are being sold the false idea of it takes a village. We are grouped together. It's for the greater good of man. Screw the individual.
This is Aristotelian type of thinking, Aristotle and stuff, I would imagine, Plato.
Well, I mean, it does. It's okay. So sure, it goes back there. To me, I call it common sense. You can read the Bible and see that God has a covenant with man, and I believe He has a covenant with each and every man, and each and every man is important,
right?
And woman too, and each and every man and woman can work out their own salvation, okay? And they are responsible to be good stewards with what God gives them. And so it's a very one-on-one thing, and we're all doing it together.
Right.
Or we all are a flock of seagulls, and we're all trying to huddle in the middle so that we don't get shot or eaten by predators. That's what they want us to be, the flock of seagulls. They want us to be the herd of sheep. They want us to be the gazelle trying to stay away from the lion. We all think like a herd. It's for the whatever we do, it's for the good of the herd.
Right.
And so if that means that you have to die, well, I happen to be your shepherd. So be it. We'll see you later.
Right.
And that's really where this is where we're coming.
Yeah.
In our world.
Yeah, and it's really, like, I was just thinking about this today, and it's not just like the current pandemic. It's where we've come in this society, and that is that we've got young people that are killing them. Well, not just young people, older people. They're committing suicide and killing themselves.
Suicides are through the roof.
At high, alarming rates.
So people feel worthless.
Right, and so that's happening, and then you have just outright chaos happening all over the place, not just in the streets with like the protests and all that kind of stuff.
It wasn't polling well.
Oh, gotcha.
For Biden.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you haven't heard it for a while.
So the riots, we don't.
Now that doesn't mean there aren't still people out in the streets protesting.
In Portland,
yes, right. They're just not showing it. Right, exactly. So you've got that kind of stuff happening, but then you've got just people treating people like, just not right.
Right.
So you get to this point now, and you've got people going, we want to live, but they want to live in their own, and they want to do what's right in their own eyes. That's the last sentence, the last verse in the book of Judges. And every man did what was right in his own eyes. And that's why they had the problems they had all the time. So we've got these people that want to live, but they're not living what life was intended for with Christ.
If you're not set up with Christ and in his word and understand what your relationship is to this world and him, you're going to be adrift. And
because I look through here, and over again it talks about the people of Christ are always like, they lose their life so that they can gain it.
Right.
And physically they're like, I'm crucified to the flesh.
Right.
No longer do I live, but Christ lives in me. And yet we're living in a culture now that says, no, hold on to your life. And I'm not saying we should be foolish.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm going, you know what? But what's more important is, what if I went to the Christian community and I said, listen, you're not witnessing to people.
Right.
And they're going to go to hell and die. But you're not witnessing to them. Every chance you get.
To be honest with you, I don't think they care.
You're not witnessing to people. That's eternal life. But then I turn around, and I go, but wait a minute. I should honor people by wearing a mask. I should honor people by telling them about Jesus.
Right.
And why isn't the Christian church talking about that? Like, I'm fine. If you want me to wear a mask for that purpose, I'll wear a mask. I'm fine like that. Like, our church has asked me, I'll wear a mask. I'm fine with that. I don't care. But why isn't it okay for the church to proclaim, you better be, when you see someone out in public,
because
you need to tell them about Jesus?
Well, it's because we're being conditioned, okay? And this goes back to the mask thing and the isolation thing and the lockdown thing. We are being conditioned. They're pulling the humanness out of us. And so I was watching the Remnant guy, Remnant TV, the Catholic fella. He played a video of an old woman in a home. And she's talking to her son. And it sounds like they're in the southeast somewhere, like West Virginia or Kentucky or Tennessee. Real thick accents. But she's just... it was heartbreaking. She's just crying. She's like, I can't live like this. How many weeks has it been since I seen you? And and she's obviously talking to him, but she wants to touch him, hug him. It's probably her son, and it really moves you to tears. And that's what we're doing, and that's what we're doing with the masks to each other. Okay, when we have that mask, we can't see, we can't identify. We lose a humanness.
Yeah.
When we cover half our face.
And it's so funny when you're in the store and you're wearing a mask and somebody walks by and you smile at them and you think they're probably smiling, but you don't know.
Right.
It's so hard to gauge that.
You know what's really funny is how many memes are there? And this goes to exactly what you're saying. You go to, as a person who's happy and full of Christ, you go to smiling at people. But what does Facebook go to? The memes are like, especially from progressive people, people can't see that I'm saying F you under my mask.
Oh, wow. That's nice.
Those are memes.
Wow.
Yeah. You know what I love about masks? I'm swearing at you.
Oh.
So it's just, it's hate and venom.
I have to admit, though, I do like the fact that when I'm in a store, I can actually talk to myself about things I'm looking at, and no one really knows I'm talking to myself. So that is one good thing about that.
Sure.
Because I'm going through the store and I'm going pancakes, man. You know, because sometimes you get caught.
But why? That's a completely human thing.
I know.
I
know, but people go, that person's weird. Because
they don't.
When we walk,
because the person
I
who
do.
just say that. No, because then you turn the corner and go, okay, do it.
Because me, I know. Because me and the boys will be walking through, and there'll be a lady, and she'll be looking at this box, talking to herself about it. And I'll look at the boys and go, "Who's she talking to?"
Yeah.
And then, of course, we'll all joke, maybe there's a spirit there. And we'll just joke and mess around. So now you can do that with a mask, and nobody knows that you're talking to something.
Can you really? It's
great.
Perplexing to me that you keep selling masks.
Oh well, hey, you got to do you, bro.
You do you.
Yeah, that's the new thing.
Well, it's they're stealing our souls.
Yeah.
They're taking away our humanity. They're taking away the natural connectivity that we all should share together by seeing each other as human beings.
Yeah.
And they're telling us what human beings should be, and that is you can pick your sex. There is no sex, and do what we say.
Yeah. Well, that's where I draw the line because over the years I realized that my faith was not as strong as I thought it was because I was afraid to lose my life. And when God finally showed me that my life was in Christ alone and not in this body, and I know a lot of people say they believe that, but I think sometimes we think we believe something, and yet when we really get down to it and talk to God and God exposes the depths of our hearts, we really don't believe what we say we believe a lot of times. And so God brought me to this place where I had a choice. You know, I could either love my life and try to preserve the physical life, or I could trust him with it. And I think I finally, I know I finally came to that place. I know I'm still growing, and I know there's still temptations that are out there, but I came to that place where I'm like, hey, I'm fine losing my life now. So now it's such a freedom. Like this pandemic thing, like for a lot of people has put people into this, you know, really strange mode. People that would have said, Brian, you're weird for having anxieties. Now they're having anxieties in this pandemic mode, and I don't have any.
No, listen.
Which is great for me.
3 years ago.
This is great for me.
With this happening,
yeah,
I'm pretty sure that you'd be catatonic by now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my hands would be raw.
We would be visiting you at your house, sitting in a corner, going,
yeah.
Did you bring anything in with you?
Yeah.
Double check. Wash your hands.
You realize the other thing that I do now is like if I go to the store and I buy a bag of nuts to snack on the way home, and I'm like, okay, well, I was in the store touching things and I got this nuts, but I don't have any hand sanitizer. Should I eat them? Man, I'm really hungry. Yeah, I'll just eat them. So I just eat them. And I'm like, hopefully I won't get sick.
At the same time, maybe you already were.
Maybe I was. Yeah. You never know.
Oh, so we were watching.
But you can get something worse than COVID by touching other people's stuff, though.
Yes.
Right?
Like, let's not forget that.
So April's like.
My brother and I call it the poo finger.
Oh.
Like if you have an uncleanly chef, like that can mess you up.
You can.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can.
That still exists, people.
Yeah, it sure does. It sure does. Because April one day I was like, how are we going to have these nuts, on the way home? Because we both like to snack on it for out. So I'm like, we don't have any hand sanitizer. She goes, we did it before. I'm like, fine. So we're eating, nuts.
Hammer down.
Hammer down.
We were watching the Oregon Midgets.
Oregon Midgets.
It's Big People Little World.
Okay.
I realize that's not politically correct. But
what, Big People Little World or Oregon Midgets?
We call them Oregon Midgets.
Is that something from old? Like,
no.
We probably shouldn't stay real long on this because if we try to get it explained, then
it's a family who had a farm.
Okay.
And they raised their kids, and some of them are small people, some of them aren't. Some are regular-sized people.
Okay.
And this documents their lives.
So 2 small people can actually make a baby that's regular?
Okay, so this
size?
family is the Roloff family.
Uh-huh.
They both were little people, and they had only one out of their 4 kids was a little person.
Oh, wow.
The other 3 were normal-sized kids.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. So the reason I bring this up, though, is we're watching this, and it's moving into the COVID times, and they have a baby, the son and daughter-in-law have a baby, a girl, and so she's probably only a month and a half old, and she gets this sickness that they diagnose as RSV. There's something going on with her lungs and her breathing and her whatever, and the flu, type A flu. And we're just sitting there going, that's COVID. And because it wasn't, we were there. That was, if you remember, that was about the time that we flew out there to go to that concert.
Okay.
And then we came home. And we all got it.
Oh.
At our house.
Huh.
And passed it around our house. And it's everything that they say. You can't breathe. There's a ton of bricks sitting on your chest. And that's where it broke out, was the Northwest.
Wow. That's
where this first became a thing, was in Washington and Oregon.
And you had it bad for a long time.
Yeah, it took me a while.
Yeah. But that's because you're so healthy and strong. Your body's really immune to that kind of stuff.
It is, but I mean, how many hits can I take? You know?
Well, this has been good. It is past 11 o'clock now, so we have taken up way too much of your time already. But we do encourage you to get into the book of Revelation.
Mike Kummer, Matt, you're the Rush Limbaugh of Nazarene Videocast.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's a good thing, because Rush now has pancreatic cancer, I think. Doesn't he? He's struggling with something.
Yeah, well, I mean, he smokes cigars.
Oh, does he?
Drinks whiskey.
Is that a bad thing?
No, I like it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and Gideon had RSV, almost killed him. But we're doing this in the context of, like, there was this thing. There's articles. There was this thing that they were putting all kinds of these diagnoses on, and people were going, hey, wait a minute. Because when the doctor said, it was like, hey, we think it's this.
Yeah.
They didn't have a definite.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Well, keep reading. You can check us on Sunday mornings at 11 o'clock. We're going to be walking through the Great Tribulation, trying to figure out when this stuff's all going down. I have yet to figure out exactly how I'm going to put this together on Sunday, but we'll do our best. I don't know what you're going to do. Because it's a mess. Maybe I will get a Tim LaHaye book and just... Maybe we'll watch the movie on Sunday morning.
Should we? We should have Sunday morning movie day?
Yeah.
I like it.
We'll watch a third of it, and then a third of it, and then a third of it.
That movie just made me terrified of guillotines. I would not want to die that way because, like, when your head rolls, do you think it's still seeing things? But you can't move your body? Or like you're in shock?
I would think once the spinal cord is severed, although
your brain has to be going crazy.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe. It might feel pain. Well, have you ever looked at the face of someone who had their head cut off? Are they making cringe looks like they're, oh, that hurt? Have you ever seen anything?
I don't know that I want to actually see it. Oh, well. I was just seeing what was in a movie and thinking about how that goes on.
If you're not man enough to try and figure it out, Matt, then you don't need to know.
Oh, my goodness.
You don't
listen,
need to know.
You watch a beheading and you let me know.
Well, I don't care really to know, but... Because I figure I'll probably be one of the fish that die in the third of the oceans. Because I've been doing some aquatic training lately.
You're going to turn into a fish?
You never know. I could. Well, is it possible for me to grow gills? I don't know. Evolution says it is possible.
I don't think it's happening soon.
No.
Right.
Okay.
Listen, on that, we really
we need to get out of here.
Yeah. Hey, have a good week, everybody. Right. Sorry we stayed too long.